This week on Hermitcraft. Surprisingly little of that, actually. Welcome to the Hermitcraft recap. My name is PixelRiffs, our writer is ZloyXP, here for a rundown on how that whole prank war is coming along. Fresh out of the Christmas armistice, both G-Team and the other guys who haven't really explained their team name yet jump into building up their bases, one more up than another.
Absolutely insanely epic.
I think this place is going to look really, really cool.
Welsknight and False work on their team's star-shaped bunker, while Grian, Iskall, and Stress Monster build up the futuristic water filter that is their team's base.
LOL. Can it be unseen?
Needless to say, the building goes pretty rapidly thanks to some members helping provide resources for these expansions. In the meantime, Joe Hill's TNT traps the area between the two, which works perfectly on any mobs who happen to spawn during the night.
Maybe somebody will come along trying to find our base, and they'll just press that. That'll save me a lot of time.
Doc M's solution to this is to simply go over the defenses by TNT launching animals at the G-Team. Alas, the Hermitcraft space program results only in a couple of cow corpses in low orbit. The bit does work in a test world, but only after a significant rewrite of the redstone, and no guarantees that server latency will be kind to it.
Yeah,
I totally saw a frame of a cow sideways, mid-air, forward a little bit. Maybe it was taking damage, but it really looked like it died.
In a set of further preventative measures, Grian digs out the basement of the base deeper to a nearby ravine, but doesn't do anything with it just yet. And that is surprisingly it for the prank war. I guess there's not much to prank yet, or the troops are still sleeping off the eggnog. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at all the events and mishaps that occurred on the Hermitcraft server this week.
I'm Poultry Man, and this is my story.
Starting with Python, who has thus far remained neutral in the prank war, although his latest project is a skyscraper-filled city block on an island right next door to the battlefield, so we get the feeling he'll probably side with whoever doesn't blow up his base first.
You know, it's going to be one of those things. We're in it for the long run, guys. We're in it for the long run.
Getting hold of the quartz for these towering builds is easier said than done, though, so he decides to enlist the help of a few other hermits, starting with Cubfan. The pair of them race each other through the nether to see who can collect the most quartz, timing themselves with fire resistance potions as they go, and the winner is awarded 5 shulker boxes from the other player, which Python probably doesn't need now that he's earned enough diamonds from the shulker box shop to create a full diamond beacon at his underwater base.
I have well and truly been playing into the man today, haven't I? Oh, jeez, dude.
Cubfan updates the map of the server at the info center, aka his old house, which gives him a bit of an idea for the Concorp area. Inspired, he works on a round square with a water feature in the center, right by the cake factory, going with strategically placed live coral at first, but swapping it for regular greenery at a revisit.
I'm being forced to design around the lighting blocks, and like everybody who wants to build safely is. And this isn't a sandbox game, like Minecraft is a sandbox game. That should not be the case. We should not have to be forced to build around lighting blocks.
It's a much needed piece of decoration in the industrial cul-de-sac that is the Concorp base. In the meantime, the time to pay up might be upon him, seeing how many hermits have been grinding at the long drive competition. Just recently, Ijevin took a shot, or a lot of shots actually, at pearling himself over established records, and False Symmetry has knocked it out of the park and beat both Cub and Azuma at 270 blocks multiple times.
So let's just take a moment to remember False's 4 winning aims. Dude, Azuma, I should have had less practice shots, definitely.
For their own projects, Ijevin nukes out even more caves to celebrate his patrons in.
I really have no idea what I'm doing with TNC. I need to hire Grian for this, man. Good lord.
And False decorates the rail to the pirate district with armor stand dioramas so the trip is not too boring to look at. She also connects 2 stories of her base with a grand stairwell complete with mermaid statues and lighting trickery, which is most welcome for someone who has no elytra on. Welsknight is on a similar track as he decides to take the task of building the medieval rail station upon himself. Ignoring for a moment how medieval and trains shouldn't really go together, the beginnings and framework of it look rather fitting for the theme.
So we'll get something kind of like that going. Looks a little funky in the corners, but
we can kind of work around that.
Impulse is a little late to the driving range, but he figures he might as well take advantage of that lifetime Concorp membership. And while he doesn't post a high enough score to beat False, he can at least celebrate with the other gifts his comments section reminded him were still stashed somewhere in the giving tree.
Christmas for me, it looks like it's gonna keep going because I didn't know that I was supposed to press this button more than once.
Back at his base, he does some tidying up before the new year and the inevitable carnage of the prank war, rerouting his slime farm into bulk storage. The other half of the derp, TangoTek, finds himself working for two as he builds the proper entrance to their underground mall. Dubbed the Mall Ball, this construction is only really serving one function, reminding the server that the mall is in fact there and available. Come drop and shop.
Figure you're probably gonna know that it's the mall by the time you get over here.
Another handful of trouble for him is the powered creeper-powered skull farm, as the skeletons are too plentiful and keep entity cramming each other further into death. There is, of course, the old being on a ladder solution that it turns out does not really cooperate with minecarts, so a different system is needed to filter out one skeleton at a time. Doc M's solution to having too many mobs is to splash them with Turtle Master and slow falling potions and then fire them into the sky. The cows are just test subjects for now, with the promise of escalating into using charged creepers once he can dial in the redstone timings. Luckily for him, he may have a near infinite supply of TNT, thanks to a shady deal with Concorp. He's balancing out all this destruction with the community service of connecting the stock exchange to Grand Central Station with a flashy piston bolt railway, putting the final touches to the track earlier this week.
Ha. Very happy about that.
Azuma, when he's not exploding cows, adds more finishing touches to the things of Christmas now past. In particular, the mini-golf course has an entrance now, advertising exactly what's behind it. A short tour of the holiday district brings him to the present Joe Hills left him last week, even though the deed to the Halloween store was not enough for X to realise he owns it now. Returning to his own place, Azuma works on his Guardian farm and adds a proper loot collection system to it. No more running around picking up stuff, now there's a hopper minecart doing exactly that for you.
But then the question is, what do I want to do with it once they're in this chest? Do I want to filter them all into their own chests or just let them be a jumble? These are questions I don't have the answers to.
TFC has had his fair share of hopper minecarts now that his second auto smelter, the one that uses the fuel created by the first auto smelter, is starting to come together. It takes a little bit of redstone wrangling and troubleshooting, but eventually he can smelt all that stone into another more usable type of stone. He's not the only one with a bunker full of experiments now, as Stress Monster and Iskall have been tinkering with their laboratory this week. Stress outfitting it with farms for flowers and cocoa beans, and Iskall attaching yes-no buttons to separate the villagers into those destined for the trading hall and those who will meet an untimely end. And yes, he puts a face on it, because Iskall. When Stress isn't setting up artificial farms, she's organically blending spaceships into the environment, actually solving one of the great mysteries of Season 6, namely what she was talking about when she said the iceberg fort was something to do with aliens. Building a crashed UFO near the site of her Amethyst cave, Stress explains the Amethyst actually came from space and is now infecting the land, and it starts to affect her beacon back at the ice fort. I guess the truth really was out there.
I think I probably need to look up the picture of a UFO. I think I've probably done this wrong, haven't I?
Joe Hills is out there in the no man's land between the two warring bases, dropping TNT traps into the landscape. But words are Joe's primary weapon, and the minefield soon becomes a sign field, which ultimately means it's a field about nothing. In between doing a little more work on the Ministry of Truth and receiving his Secret Santa gift from Poultry Man, Joe digs down to the ravine below the G-Team's base and starts making it safe enough to use for something. We're not sure yet. That might well have been the last good deed of the hen-headed hero now that the Civil War has driven him into hiding. Well, at least between him leaving for a bit and the tag game stuck on Good Times with Scar, the shenanigans will be concentrated on the prank war and the prank war only. But even so, we kind of doubt that, because Mum Grian is still a thing. Although they're having a mini prank war of their own, which mostly involves not leaving automatic chicken dispensers at each other's bases, which Mumbo may or may not have now fixed, by the way. Mumbo also drops by the Winter Wonderland solely to check out the Santa's Workshop build, only to find that Christmas is over and all the elves have gone on a coffee break.
It's honest, it's one of the coolest builds ever, and I was so excited to check it out. Yeah, the elves are kind of freaking out, they don't know what to do. Look at that. Oh, pure mayhem.
Back at his base, he puts together a villager breeder based on a design by Frilioth, stacks a bunch of trading hall cells vertically, and after being baffled by breeding mechanics and completely creeped out by a villager in a boat, he settles into AFK. That, as per usual, was a mistake. Not only does Grian find his hiding spot with his usual pinpoint accuracy, he happened to find that the villager breeder is moderately balked, which is why, as a good friend, he tried to poke Mumbo with a stick in the hopes that he will wake up and sort it out. The poking goes a little too well after Grian jumps into the hidey hole with Mumbo and, in the grand tradition of professional Minecrafters, forgets that when you're in a 2x1 hole with someone, you're not punching blocks, you're punching the someone.
I'm sorry, Mumbo. No, I was just trying to get...
The result is a broken villager breeder, a dead mumb, and one very confused false. And finally, there's ZombieCleo back at the Juggernaut ship, tweaking and fixing the interiors. It's time to finally introduce the ship to the captain, herself, and herself is now pleasantly residing in a captain's cabin, utilising her geography skills for the server map on the desk. It's worth noting that the items held by invisible armor stands make for really neat map markers, although one does wonder why not use the renamed banner system introduced by Minecraft 1.13, and the answer is because it doesn't look as cool. Which brings us to Recap Tag, and this week we're tagging Python, mostly as a simulation of what it's going to be like having very noisy neighbours in his new base. So before the explosions start, head over to his latest video, the one linked in the iCards, and comment, "Check your roof for cows," because they've got to have landed somewhere. And that's just about it for this week's recap. Our writer is ZloyXP, and my name is Pixel Riffs. Zloy has been doing a bit of diamond alchemy in his latest vanilla SMP video. The link to that is in the end screen theatre. Don't forget to leave a like while you're still here, and subscribe so you won't miss future recaps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.